Alright, so the grenade launcher, or as cultured people will call it, the noob tube. But in Rising Storm 2 Vietnam, we have two different types of grenade launchers, and in today's video, we're going to be focusing on the American M79 because I've been using it a lot lately, primarily because using the M14, MAZ-49, it becomes boring after a while, so I decided to use something a little bit different for an extensive period of time. And this is my experience with it. And hopefully, if I don't forget, I will put timestamps in the video description so you can skip ahead to certain chapters of the video. But if I forget to do that, just abuse me in the comments. And while you're down there, like the video because likes is literally all my self-worth is. But anyways, let's get into the video. But in terms of stats, it has maximum stats for power. It's also pretty mobile and has, extreme amounts of recoil depending on what type of ammo you use. And for some reason, it says that the rate of fire is 2, but the game puts the rate of fire for the XM21 suppressed as 1. I don't know how that works. It literally just baffles me. And also when I start talking about weapons, I want to start throwing in like a real life fun fact or whatever whenever I talk about weapons, right? So to more or less step up my game with accuracy and whatnot. And somehow, somewhere, this weapon is still being used and it can be legally owned in America. Like someone's going to break into your house, right? And you just lob a 40mm fucking high explosive grenade into them. I'm clearly joking, but okay, not about legally owning the weapon, but about the home defense part. But this weapon has different loadouts that vary from faction to faction. I won't go into too much detail, but you can see on screen the general loadouts for the factions. I find having a secondary to be very important with this weapon. So important that I changed my key binding so that one of the buttons on the side of my mouse drops my weapon and it instantly switches to my revolver or M1919. No, M19. The fucking 9mm gun. The fucking 9mm gun.
M1911.
That wasn't so hard, was it?
But if you're able to, I highly recommend that you change the key binding to drop your weapon from backspace to something more comfortable, because this has actually saved me a lot of times when using the grenade launcher. But in terms of ammo loadouts, you can have 9 HE grenades, which is my personal preference. I'm not going to sit here and say which loadout is the best or which one's the better one. I just like to use the 9 HE grenades because if I'm going to be using a grenade launcher, I want to be able to create as many explosions as possible. However, you can get 6 HE grenades with 12 40mm buckshots. Now the buckshots are great. It allows you to be much better at close range because I'm pretty sure the HE grenades have a minimum arming distance of 15 meters, and unless you can land a direct hit on a critical zone of the body, you are going to be in trouble. But it basically turns your grenade launcher into a single fire shotgun, or a single barreled shotgun should I say. But the last option we have is 6 HE with 2 smoke grenades. Now if you have a coordinated team, these smokes absolutely do serve a purpose, especially if, let's say, you're pinned down in an area. You can just lob a couple of these bad boys and you're good to go. However, they do take a couple of seconds to kick in rather than instantaneous like the throwable ones, but each, has their own use. If I was playing on Hue City, I'd take the buckshots because I'd find myself in more close quarter scenarios. If I were, let's say playing in a competition or an event where things are a lot more coordinated, I'd take the smokes because then I can say, okay, I'm gonna smoke here, do you want to smoke there? But for general gameplay or in general battles, random battles, whatever you want to call it, I take the 9 high explosive rounds only because I just, if I'm gonna use a grenade launcher, I want to make sure to have as much ammo as possible to create as many explosions as possible. Alright, so being a grenade launcher, you are literally throwing grenades over a long distance, which is why when you're targeting people, you want to make sure that you fire in a way so that you can take out as many people as possible. Obviously, killing 2 Charlies with 1 stone is fantastic, but when you actually aim at a target, you need to be mindful of the explosive radius because it can be pretty inconsistent, and I have been, should I say, cucked multiple times because of it. But what I do is, right, let's say you're engaging someone between 15 to 75 meters. You don't need to use the rangefinder in my opinion because where you aim is more or less where the shell is going to go, and you don't need to compensate for the range too much unless you're like shooting at a weird incline incline or decline, whatever. If someone is running, you will need to lead the target because the shell travels at 76 meters per second. But what I tend to do is, right, if the target isn't obstructed by anything and they aren't, like I said, at a ridiculous range between 50 to 75 meters, what I tend to do is I try to aim for the feet region, because this reduces the chance that, you know, if you're aiming for the body, if they're moving, it's going to be a lot harder to land a direct hit. You might get lucky and do it, but I find that, you know, I'll either overshoot the shot or undershoot the shot depending on where I aim, which is why I tend to aim for the feet, because I find that, you know, if it explodes around or near the feet, then they are guaranteed to die. But let's say the target is obstructed by like a rock, a ledge, a tree. I try to aim for the body as best as I can, like I said, between 50 to 75 meters, because if you miss the body, obviously you will overshoot the target, or, you know, you might end up hitting the object itself. Sometimes you might end up killing them, but I have found that sometimes if I hit an object near the target, the explosion is so inconsistent that sometimes they'll die, but sometimes they'll live. Which is why if you can land a direct hit on the body, it will explode on them, but it also has a better chance of hitting people that are within the general area behind that object with that person. But, you know, to give you a scenario of this happening, right? So, you know, Dawn of Tech, one of my favorite maps, and Anthony, you know, he was, you know, causing me some my voice just died. He was causing me some grief, to say the least, and I see him on a balcony, I lean the corner, I try to shoot at him, and it hits an object at a weird angle. It looked like it directly hit him, except it didn't, and he survived and he killed me, and then he DM'd me on Discord later saying, oh yeah, you know, gotta be mindful of the explosive radius. But look, let's say, you know, we're engaging a target over 100 meters. This is where I tend to slow down and more or less observe what I am shooting at. For starters, you want to use the Z key to mark the target and to get a kind of an idea of how far the target is. When this feature decides to work, because it's pretty goddamn inconsistent, when you have the range, adjust yourself accordingly and aim for the target. Now, admittingly, you might miss the target by overshooting it or undershooting it. That's okay, just adjust yourself accordingly. And obviously, you're not going to be perfect 100% of the time. It does require some estimation. I wouldn't necessarily say get out a fucking calculator and like a protractor and start doing mathematics to calculate how to directly hit the target. But, you know, if a target is hiding behind a sandbag or object, like I said previously, you want to aim for the topmost part, because obviously at extreme ranges, it's going to be harder to accurately hit a body shot. Like, it's going to be a lot harder. So if you get hit, like, let's say a surface that might be near the target that will look like it'll hit the freaking target itself, then that's what I tend to do. But if you're going to be taking a more further back roll, like lobbing shots from like over a couple of 100 meters, not a couple of, but like 100 meters plus, you know, try and find your local ammo cache, so, you know, you can lob shell after shell after shell, and then, you know, fall back, resupply, and rinse and repeat. But, you know, another way I like to play this weapon is I find a camping position, such as like being hidden in a tree, a bush, or around a rock, and especially if you can do this as sort of a flanking position, so you can see the people running onto the point and you get side shots onto them. That is very, very effective. Bonus points if, you know, you hit like an enemy commander who might have ambushed, or, you know, you got a clump of VC running onto a point and you can get multis. But, you know, I asked Anthony, right, for his wisdom with the grenade launcher, and he did say something that stuck out, and that was to assess the situation you're in and how you can use it to the best of your abilities, because the grenade launcher is a very adaptive weapon. If you are getting pelted from afar by a machine gunner or a sniper from a fortified position, you can easily take out them, because the grenades will automatically detonate after 750 meters, which means any range, as long as you're able to accurately use the rangefinder, and obviously behind, like beyond 250 meters, you're gonna need to really do some self-estimation, you can still take out fortified positions pretty easily. But, you know, let's say you're playing against decent squad leaders or a decent commander, I'd try go scouting for tunnels, and obviously you can easily one-shot tunnels, right? Bonus points if you kill the squad leader as they're digging the tunnel, and it does help if the loach is sort of scouting for you if you're in a map with a loach. Or let's say, you know, I remember on Firebase Georgina playing as the US, I got absolutely wrecked, literally. Like, this was like a couple of days ago of uploading this video. Our enemy commander, Wambo, I say Wambo because it's like the SpongeBob thing. He said it's Wambo from a YouTube video because I asked him about it. He literally destroyed us, steamrolled. This was one of the worst steamrolls I've ever had in Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. You're probably wondering, well, how is this relevant? Well, it's because plain and simply, if I'm going against a decent commander who's getting on the point and ambushing, I want to be able to get to, like, let's say a high ground or in a position where I can overlook the point and I'm able to lob grenades and basically prevent people from getting on the point, as well as prevent the commander from being able to accurately, or not accurately, decently use the rapid or ambush deploy ability. But yet again, in this one particular scenario, I just did not stand a chance. Like, they captured B, and within 10 seconds, they captured C objective. It's like they captured B, and then, you know, you're falling back because I didn't want to spawn camp, obviously. So as soon as B is lost, I always try to fall back. And it's like, oh, Charlie has been lost. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I fell back to Charlie, and they were spawning there, and I didn't want to fucking spawn camp them. It was just a whole terrible experience. But I also should mention that when you fire at walls and different surfaces, the grenades do not penetrate walls like the RPG does. And also, like, it's pretty inconsistent, but most fences don't stop the grenade shell unless it's like a very thick fence, which is why, you know, you should feel comfortable if you see someone behind a fence, like that little car park on Resort. I think we all know what I'm talking about. You can shoot a grenade through that fence and, you know, easily hit people. However, that thick fence that you look on when you're pushing the left side of Alpha, then that's a lot harder to penetrate. Like, it directly hits that fence. I've done that many times. Also, one more thing that I should mention is this weapon does have a crappy reload. You shoot once and you are vulnerable. What I find is I shoot and then I just dive instantly, because if you stay standing, you don't have a weapon and you're a sitting duck, and obviously if you're using like a revolver and at range, you're just gonna get easily picked off, which is why if you shoot, try and get to a cover position, reload, and then assess the situation, and then continue engaging targets. And this also applies if you're using the buckshots. You know, you might be able to take out multiple people at once, or maybe just one person, but you know, if you have, let's say, 3 people and you've only got 1 bullet, you're going to be in a very tough position if you're using the buckshots, which is why I'd either switch to my secondary, instantly drop my grenade launcher, or I just avoid the situation. You gotta pick your battles, because sometimes you gotta say, okay, is it worth going after these people, or should I just let them go on and then get into a better position that's more advantageous for me? But anyways, I'm gonna end today's video there. I hope you guys did enjoy it and found it informative. Please like the video, I'm begging you. Anyways, my name is Tan2, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.